Thank you for taking the time to follow Nghe An Newspaper, the newspaper's YouTube channel, and Nghe An Radio and Television on digital platforms. Now let's follow the most prominent international news that has just happened. On 24th, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio held closed-door talks on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York, according to statements released after the exchange between the two sides. The meeting lasted less than an hour and mainly focused on the Ukraine conflict. The U.S. State Department said in a statement that the secretary reiterated President Donald Trump's call to end the conflict and the need for Moscow to take meaningful steps towards a lasting solution to the Russia-Ukraine war. The Russian Foreign Ministry issued a more detailed summary of the talks, stating that the two foreign ministers agreed to continue the constructive dialogue between the Russian and U.S. foreign ministries and reaffirmed the importance of the momentum created by the Alaska summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin for the normalization of bilateral relations.
Speaker of the Lebanese parliament Nabi Perry said 4 U.S. citizens were among the victims. According to Foreign Minister Joseph R., Lebanon was also seriously injured in the Israeli raid. Lebanese Prime Minister Nas Salam called the attack an act of civilian surveillance, saying it was a threatening message to Lebanese people returning home in the south. He called on the international community to condemn Israel in the strongest terms for its repeated violations of UN resolutions and international law. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun accused Israel of violating the ceasefire agreement. The UNFCCC Jones Fund in DB expressed shock and outrage at the incident. Israel has continued to strike targets on Lebanese territory despite a U.S.-brokered ceasefire agreement on the Hezbollah armed group in November 2024. The Lebanese army said Israel had violated the ceasefire 4,500 times. Warning that these actions risk slowing down the process of disarming Hezbollah, the Lebanese government is seeking to disarm Hezbollah under intense pressure from the U.S. and due to concerns about Israel. In an interview with journalist Pavan Jarabin on May 21, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that Russian President Vladimir Putin remains interested in resolving the situation in Ukraine through negotiations and hopes to continue cooperation with the United States. Mr. Peskov said that Russian President Vladimir Putin, as well as U.S. leader Donald Trump, remain interested and ready to bring the entire Ukraine crisis to a peaceful conclusion. The Kremlin spokesman said that Moscow will continue to work to find opportunities for diplomatic activities. He stressed, "I believe in the efforts of the United States and President Trump personally in this matter. We will wait and see what the results will be." Mr. Peskov said that President Putin values a constructive relationship with President Trump. He stressed that both leaders want to work towards a peaceful solution to the Ukraine conflict. According to Mr. Peskov, President Putin appreciates the two leaders being able to openly discuss the most urgent and sensitive issues. The Kremlin spokesman also mentioned President Trump's recent visit to Britain, one of Ukraine's strongest supporters. Mr. Peskov said Britain is one of the leading countries supporting the conflict. President Trump has probably heard a lot about plans to continue to put pressure on Russia, including the use of sanctions. Earlier, the Kremlin spokesman said,
Recently, when speaking at the meeting of the United Nations Security Council on the situation in Ukraine, Mr. Dmitry Podyansky, first deputy permanent representative of Russia to the United Nations, stated that the European Union (EU) and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization (NATO) have pushed themselves into a deadlock with the so-called anti-Russian project in Ukraine. The first deputy permanent representative of Russia emphasized that today we all clearly see that the EU and NATO have fallen into the trap of the anti-Russian project in Ukraine. They are trapped in lies and do not know how to get out of the situation they themselves have created. According to Mr. Polyansky, instead of working together to promote peace, the EU and NATO are fueling the conflict. He said that the EU and NATO have repeatedly and baselessly portrayed Russia as an enemy and are ready to attack them as soon as the Ukraine issue is resolved. The Russian Grand Cleric also accused the West of doing everything to sabotage the results and agreements reached during the meeting between the Russian and U.S. presidents in Alaska a month ago.
On January 21, Prime Minister S. Petfiela announced that the country would establish a working group on drone operations within the National Security Council to respond promptly to potential threats in the region. speaking at the NATO Day event in Osaka, Prime Minister Fiala stressed that the main purpose of the SC in establishing the working group on drone operations is to build a close coordination mechanism to respond promptly to potential attacks from UAVs, while protecting national security and supporting allies in the region. The group will not only focus on passive defense but also ensure the safety of the population by integrating with new technological advances. According to Prime Minister Fiala, this is part of a broader strategy to strengthen SH's position in NATO. Especially when the threats from UAVs are spreading to neighboring countries, the group will include Japanese experts and analysts from many state agencies such as the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Interior, the Ministry of Transport, the Army, the Police SC and other relevant units. The main task of the group is to monitor the development of global UAV technology, on that basis, design and deploy appropriate counter-UAV measures. The group will also coordinate with UAV procurement packages to integrate into the multi-layered air defense system, ensuring that the SEX is capable of responding quickly to.
According to the Time of Israel on 22nd, Syrian President Ahmad Ansara and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio had a face-to-face discussion on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. The U.S. State Department said that during the meeting, Secretary Rubio emphasized that Syria has an opportunity to build a stable and sovereign state. The two sides also discussed ongoing counterterrorism efforts, the search for missing U.S. citizens, and the importance of Israel-Syria relations in promoting regional security. On the Syrian side, President Ansara recalled that U.S. President Donald Trump lifted some sanctions on the country in May this year, and called on the U.S. Congress to completely lift sanctions on Damascus to remove the burden on the people from the old regime. In a speech on the same day, President Ansara expressed hope to reach military and security agreements with Israel before the end of this year. He stressed that Israel must withdraw from Syrian land and that security risks can be resolved through negotiations. I hope that the dialogue will lead us to an agreement that protects Syria's sovereignty and addresses some of Israel's concerns. However, the Syrian leader ruled out the possibility of joining the Abraham Accords, and also mentioned the Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza, the focus of attention in recent days. He added that Syria is different from the countries that signed the Abraham Accords because it is not a direct neighbor of Israel. We have suffered more than 1,000 airstrikes and incursions from the Golan Plateau. Regarding the situation in Gaza, there is a lot of outrage in the world, and this also affects our position within VIP. The positive thing. On January 23, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant announced that the 750 kV line, the NSCA, the last high-voltage line at the plant, had been disconnected due to a fire carried out by Ukrainian security forces. On its Telegram channel, the plant said that the plant's technological systems are safe. Staff are constantly monitoring the operating parameters of the equipment, and no violations of safety limits and conditions have been recorded. Radiation levels at the nuclear power plant site in the sanitary protection zone and in the observation area are normal and do not exceed natural limits. Earlier, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant's communications director, Genya Gasina, said that the plant had switched to using backup power from diesel generators due to the loss of external power lines. Eventually, all generators were restarted and are operating normally. Ms. Yasina confirmed that the plant currently has enough fuel reserves to provide backup power. According to the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, this is the 10th incident to have occurred at the plant since the conflict in Ukraine began. Initially, the IAEA team of experts at the plant is investigating the details of the incident.
Poland and Sweden have just conducted their first joint military exercise, called Snake Godland Center, to enhance the common defense capabilities of the two countries and ensure security in the Baltic Sea region. Speaking to the press, Polish Defense Minister Cian Kamiś emphasized that the above exercise was conducted based on the defense agreement signed by Poland and Sweden last month, focusing on coordinated activities in the Baltic Sea and cooperation in defense technology. Meanwhile, Swedish Defense Minister P. Johnson reaffirmed the importance of the defense agreement signed with Poland, emphasizing that this agreement will open up many opportunities for defense cooperation between the two countries as well as conduct joint activities including bilateral exercises. According to the Polish Armed Forces Operational Command, the Snake format, also known as short notice exercise, is one of the most rigorous forms of military training to test the actual combat readiness of participating forces. The exercises are designed with limited preparation time, thus emphasizing high mobility and interoperability between units. GLAN Cross-G includes land, sea, and air operations to enhance the joint defense readiness of the two countries, while ensuring security in the Baltic region. In addition, the exercise also focuses on testing the ability to quickly respond to unexpected situations and improve interoperability in complex environments, helping the two countries be ready to deal with potential threats. The Gotlandship exercise takes place in the context of the complicated developments of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which has significantly impacted the security situation of Poland, Sweden, and the Baltic region. According to analysts, the first joint exercise of Poland and Sweden is not only a military training activity but also demonstrates the role of these two countries in ensuring security in the Baltic region in particular and the European region in general. Of Poland, Sweden. According to analysts, the first joint exercise of Poland and Sweden is not only a military training activity but also demonstrates the ensuring security in the Baltic region in particular.